I don't think if you gave me a graph, I could truly represent the level of anxiety that episode 4 of Platinum End gave me. You knew Metropoliman was going to come out at the very least alive. I wasn't sure victor or not, because really when you have pretty much a potential of all the candidates in one location, you don't want to put your eggs in one basket. But in terms of would he get out of this episode alive, I mean, based on the two goons that were trying to defeat him, which, truth be told, they did plan as well as I think one could given the circumstance. But to see how this man's plan came together, I mean, at first I was putting all my, expectations in that actually being him on the field the entire time. But then there was so much uncertainty about, more Power Ranger looking characters popping up, and then the kid, and I was like, how many people is he involved with here? Because we know the limitations with arrows, how fast, how the distance, how many can be active at one time, so I'm like, there's no way that he could navigate all of this. There has to be external factors, another candidate perhaps. I mean, our boy Mirai's up there, rightfully so, sitting and observing. The more people that join up with the group, the more you start questioning, well, if we had 6 out of the 12, maybe that would make more sense. But you want to expose your identity. So watching all of that unfold, as you basically, I felt like the episode did a perfect job at making you feel like you're in the audience, not knowing what to do or how to feel. There's a couple of really, I think funny moments in the midst of the anxiety with, the narrators and the spectators being like, I have no idea what's going on. Because you have to remember, when he's floating or they're shooting arrows, they don't see that. So for all they know it's a bunch of Power Rangers on the field, pretty much shooting a show. And rightfully so, a lot of people didn't believe certain ones were getting killed up until it was kind of hard not to admit the horror that you're seeing. That's what I really like about Platinum End, is that so far the rules and the limitations have such a degree that a situation that is literally them standing for the most part or floating in the middle of a baseball field can be so exciting because you don't know where he is. When the Jumbotron pops up and he's talking, well, it can't be the guy on the field, and then you start questioning what's going on. At one point, they show you him literally sitting in his apartment or his crib, whatever you want to call it. And it's like, you have no idea how it's going to all connect. And by the time all the pieces line up and you're like, oh, this man literally just pulled the ultimate scam. There's more than one way to control people, especially humans. If you have the money, and it'd be very easy to get money if you have the ability to control, you could walk up to a bank teller, shoot him with a red arrow and say, give me $1 million. And as long as they had the money there, they're going to give you $1 million. Hell, even if they didn't, they would probably find a way to get $1 million for you and eventually would meet back up. So to see how it all connects, I think they did a solid job at not necessarily making you root for Metropoliman, but at the very least feel like he deserved the victory, so to speak. That's kind of my initial thought. He's not a good person. He clearly is not going to be the right person to be God, all things considered. But in terms of the three main characters we were following in this episode, you had the two people who were pretty much in a suicide pact after failing, which I am glad that they gave some backstory to these two rather than just keeping them nameless faces, right? And you see what got them down the dumps, how they were pretty much picked right next to each other and everything like that. And so you kind of understand where they're coming from, but when you start seeing the plan, and even before you necessarily know the punchline, it's hard not to say, if I have to pick which of these three I would like to see carry on into episodes 5 and 6, I gotta be honest, Metropoliman. Even if I don't think he's a great person, I think in terms of entertainment value, he's gonna be bringing the most entertainment, hands down. Then the kid thing happened, and I'm like, man, the guy's a scumbag. He needs to die next week. It's just one of those things where he's kind of become this perfect villain to hate, so to speak, because he's perfectly made this hero image for the television, but now that hero image is crumbling. But at the same time, he could easily work his magic with the red arrows and white arrows to make his image seem just as fine as it always was. But it's going to be interesting because it really feels like Mirai is about to expose himself, and you can't really argue against it, I find, because if you want to be a decent person, despite him wanting to live, helping a girl crying out for help, I mean, it's hard not to want to be a god who would help people rather than a god who would kill his way to victory. Logically, should he do it? No, but he's also not an emotionless husk, and given that his crush is visibly upset by it, I don't see how he doesn't jump in to save the day. But then again, out of the month that we've been following Platinum M, there's been so many times I was like, oh, an angel peers down at him. I know whose angel that is. And then it turns out to be an angel of his childhood crush. So there's definitely potential that something intervenes before he can. But at the same time, I don't think it would be in his character from what we've seen to not at the very least attempt to help, even if someone pulls him back or something like that. I mean, even the angels themselves are admitting, like, we hope Mirai doesn't do anything foolish. And sometimes being the fool is, being the hero, all things considered. And I think there's a lot of different ways to become God, even though in human nature, killing people to get, your full power is naturally the thought process most people would go by. So it'd be interesting to see if Mirai jumped to save her, if all the other candidates looked at that and said, okay, we're not going to treat him necessarily the same way we'll treat Metropoliman or something like that. Like, there's a lot of different ways it could go, right? But I think in terms of anxiety with its directing, especially the last, I think it was like 10 or 15 seconds where they're flashing between all the eyes and perspectives, absolutely bone-chilling, shiver up my spine, like, sort of a thing. Like, I know we're still in the first arc, and I heard the first arc of Platinum End is basically, like, what a lot of people liked, even if they didn't like where the manga eventually went. But in terms of what I'm seeing, I'm just so impressed by the rules, because when you think about it, wings and 2 different arrows, you wouldn't think there's a lot of strategy behind that. Either you control, you kill, or you flee. That's how most would do it. But just look at that baseball field. I really feel like it's a flex from the author showing what you can expect when it comes to candidate versus candidate and even angels. I mean, look at the angel trying to protect her girl at the end, right? Begging and pleading for her life. There's a wide variety of opinions and personalities, and I think that's what makes a show like Platinum End feel so distinct from an author who, really, I've said it, I think it was either last week or the week before, like, you would expect what an author of Death Note would do with a show surrounding a form of killing, so to speak, but it very much feels like Platinum End standing on Platinum End's own 2 feet, and whether that's a great thing for you or not, obviously, that's all a matter of opinions, but I'm glad that it's not feeling like a rehash of a similar setting, so to speak, despite that setting having insane popularity and everything. And I believe the ending was also controversial, but I mean, anime original, maybe fleshing it out better, please no spoilers. This is just what I know about, public opinion about the show. But I mean, I judge things by the anime, and so far, 4 for 4 for me. Platinum End, definitely still high recommendation, very excited for more. Let me know your thoughts, feelings down below. What did you think? Were you as anxious as me, and were you as shocked to see how good this plan actually turned out to be? Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.